Thanks very much, Maxine. Good afternoon, all. Thanks for coming along and welcome. I am in a blissfully air-conditioned office at 20 degrees, so I'm going to gloat on that one a little. Okay, so let's get straight to this because we've got a lot of stuff to cover, which I'd like to cover with you starting now. Looking there, you can see that's me at the bottom. I hold a fellowship in insurance and I'm a chartered safety and health practitioner, so I kind of know what I'm talking about as well, hopefully. Start off with, why are you here? Why should I listen to this seminar? You know, it's all about the defensibility of claims. What's the risk of someone catching COVID at your workplace? What are the implications for you? The implications for you could be prosecution for your business or for you personally. The cost of being sued could potentially send your business under, or at least cost you a great deal of money. And of course, you or your team might catch the dreaded virus. I want to talk to you a little bit about solutions of putting the right measures in place and getting your audit trail. Audit trail I'm going to bang on about a lot, and getting your evidence together to make sure that you're protected as far as you possibly can be. So, next please. Okay, the aims, which you can see there in front of you, the physical issues, bit on risk assessments, bit on PPE. There's a lot of talk in the market about PPE, and I want to kind of clarify a few misconceptions perhaps, and also understand how the claims might arise. So looking at that now, I'm going to go through a few of the physical things that we've looked at, and this does go on a little bit, this slide, but there's a couple of relevant parts in it. When looking at people returning to work, the kind of things that you would be looking at is public transport. Are they coming in on public transport? Is it safe? Can you do it out of rush hour? Can you stagger the visits in? A lot more people will be coming in cars, push bikes, maybe even walking. So that's something to factor in when you're looking at having people back at work. And I appreciate every business is different. The larger ones may manage it differently from the smaller ones. What about when they get their access to premises? Have you got a lot of people pouring in through the door all at the same time, or queuing up at 2 meters distance? Have you got a one-way system maybe that allows people in one way and out the other way? Consider also things like parking for workers. If you have a director's car park and half the directors are working from home, consider opening it up maybe to some of the other staff, maybe the vulnerable people in there. You may have somebody who's clinically vulnerable. If you can kind of get them into the car park, it reduces their exposure to the outside world. These are simple things, pragmatic things, without making it too difficult. Turnstiles and entry points, if you have them, can you leave them open? We've taken the decision here, all of our internal doors here, wide open. But also we have what's called maglocks on the fire doors. So if the fire alarm goes off, which arguably is the greatest danger, all our doors will automatically swing shut. Apart from that, we're free to walk around the building. There may be an additional cost for that, and when you're factoring your budget as to how you're going to deal with COVID-19 in the workplace and return to work, you might want to think about some of the little things like that. Okay, 2 meter gap has been reduced to 1+ now, 1+ mitigation. Mitigation is social distancing. You might be looking at face coverings. My wife got me one for a £5 here, which is just a cloth you stick through the washing machine and put your Kleenex in, not PPE, and I'll come to that in a moment. Very important distinction there. Routes, distancing markers. We like 2 meters, actually, 1+. I'd still stick to 2 at the moment. I believe, from what I can understand, that you're 10 times more likely to catch the disease at 1 meter than you are at 2. So if you can manage 2, great. Other things to look at: cleaning, touch point cleaning. I'll read that. I've written a few down here. Photocopiers, kitchens. Remove your towels and tea cloths. Take them home, somebody get them through the wash. Switch to kitchen towels. Handrails, lots of handrails. Machine controls where you're repeating machinery. Keypads perhaps for access. And of course, vehicles. If you're in multi-use vehicles, such as a skip lorry on 3 shifts a day with 3 different drivers, gear sticks, steering wheels, wiper switches, all the things, operational machines, these all need to be looked at and ensure you have a cleaning process in place, and that should be audited where at all possible. Simple checklist is fine, no problem at all. Just as you get in the cab, sanitize and clean. As you get out the cab, sanitize and clean. Applies to all kinds of work equipment, be it a power press or even a desk if you have to use somebody else's desk. Avoid hot desking if you possibly can. If you do need more than one person working together, for example, on a manual handling operation, we need 2 people to operate a machine, consider rather than just, oi, John over there or Bill over there, can you help me? Buddying up with one person, limit the exposure, reduce it down as far as you can. Other machinery, look at manual handling equipment, forklift trucks, telehandlers, powered pallet trucks. Pallet trucks, again, that sanitisation procedure is quite important to get in place if you can. Also, the government guidance is fantastic. I appreciate there's much trade guidance out there, which tends to be trade specific. There's insurer guidance out there that might be more towards the insurance market that insurer is looking at. But I like the government guidance because if you are having to defend a claim in court, the judge, I suspect, is less likely to count on something that Boris Johnson was saying, guys, be careful, the great common sense. He will be looking at what's been laid down by the government, and in that particular case, it's government guidance. It's very straightforward. It's actually very good. I've got one over here somewhere, which is a good all for different businesses. You can print it off. It's free. It's on the HSE website, and look for different businesses. It's fantastic. But if you end up defending a claim, that's where people will be looking to see what you've done to protect yourself. So, okay. Inside there, by the way, there's a COVID-19 secure poster. You can print it off, fill it in, and put it on your workplace. Keep the employees happy. Help them to understand that you have prepared and made a safe workplace, because this is important to look after your staff. If they don't get sick, they'll be more comfortable. They'll be happier to come to work, and you will be in a much better position from a business point of view. Just touch on cleaning materials. I realise that we're not all huge businesses. Some out there are small SMEs, some are larger, and it's great everyone's saying stock up on sanitizer. Well, you try going to Costco and get some. Now, it is coming back online now. You can get the stuff, you can get it in Tesco's at a push, but I do appreciate it's not always easy. So try and think a little bit in advance if you can get some maybe advanced orders to get in, or raid wherever you can effectively. Okay. That's the physical issues I think I've covered off. Risk assessment, people always bring this up, working from home. I've done vehicles. Now, you should really have a separate COVID-19 risk assessment. We've done one, I've done one here. It's just fairly straightforward. It's 4 or 5 pages of stuff in there. I won't read it all out for you. For your workplace. Only you know your workplace, so you should perhaps be consulting with your HNS consultant perhaps to see what you've got in place, talk to your own people in the business to make sure that it's fairly straightforward. That risk assessment will change as the landscape develops. Every time there's new guidance, I've had to go into ours and to change it slightly, update it to our intranet, or you may have to email it out to people. Communication of the contents of that risk assessment, if not the assessment itself, is crucial, absolutely crucial to where we're going to move on to claims defensibility. That is something that will help to protect your business going forward. As well as your risk assessment, which identify, if you're not familiar, who's going to be hurt, how they're going to be hurt, you need to review your safe systems of work, which follow on from the risk assessment. How do I do the job? So if you're operating a power press, for example, or any other machinery, the risk assessment will say who can be hurt, how they can be hurt. And the safe system of work, you might call them method statements, standard operating procedures, SOPs or whatever, will say you do this, this and this. I would suggest that the first thing of any operating procedure now is ensure that the site is clean, that you've disinfected it, sanitized it, whatever, and the closing procedure will be similar. The main one in the middle should be roughly the same. Now, all of this is great having this in place, but you need to communicate it to people. It needs to be made clear to your workforce. And this audit trail that I mentioned slightly halfway down here is that they need to not only read this and understand it, but they need to sign for it effectively and to say that they'll agree with what's in there. This is going to be crucially important as this audit trail for defensibility to touch on in a moment. PPE. Now, everybody goes on about PPE. We all know about the media emphasis on it with NHS and face masks, etc. So I've had questions here of, do I need to wear PPE? Will you be supplying PPE? PPE is a little bit difficult, but I'm going to go through a little bit more detail here, and I'm conscious of time, so I will get on with it. It's distorting the requirements for public perception. There's a strict hierarchy control in the workplace for controlling exposure, the first of which is eliminate the risk, moving further down perhaps to isolation. Social distancing is isolation, a form of isolation. It's more important than PPE. PPE should be reserved for the medical profession. The government guidance is quite clear on this. Only bring PPE into the workplace if you normally use it. If you don't use it, don't use PPE. There are certain circumstances, for example, a first aider who may be treating somebody, may be looking at something, but I would probably divert that to say get the emergency services in there. They're more qualified to deal with it and will have the right equipment. Now, if you do issue PPE, you have to assess it, risk assess it. You have to provide training in how to use it, ensure that you've got face fit testing if it is masks, and depend upon BAME, certain BAME will have different facial characteristics, and you might not have problems with face fit testing. You then have to train them in the use of it, make them sign for it, work out replacement, all of those things, and monitor that it's being used properly, stored properly. And if you haven't supplied it and can't supply that audit trail, that kind of opens you up to some issues. In terms of face coverings, the government's been very clear about this. A face covering is not PPE. A face covering, like I showed you earlier, you can make at home, you can buy them cheap anywhere. They're not to a specific standard. So they don't count as PPE. Their benefit is questionable. They're used on public transport, what you have to, but they're not PPE, so you don't have to jump through all those hoops. People can use them if they want to, but PPE, if you fall foul of that, and you do issue it, and you haven't done all those things that I mentioned, potentially there's a claim going.
Simon, sorry, just a quick question. Am I right in saying, therefore, you don't have to do a complete drains up review of your health and safety policy, but just a temporary change to the health and safety policy for the COVID-19?
The policy should be reviewed annually or more regularly if there's a lot of change, as a rule anyway. But certainly at the moment, I would leave emphasis on getting the COVID-19 one up to speed. I believe that's the right way of doing it. It's the thing that people are going to be looking for. It's the thing that people are scared about. And it's the thing that I really think you need to get right with the potential for all of the COVID-19 claims coming in, which I'll drop onto in a minute. Does that kind of answer it?
Yeah, thank you. Thanks.
Okay. How might COVID-19 liability claims arise? I'm going to give you a scenario, and then we're going to rattle on through some of the stuff. And it hasn't happened. It's one I've put together. I'll just remind you that yesterday, the whole of Bournemouth Beach was absolutely crowded in clear breach of all the guidelines. I can't believe that some people there won't contract the disease as a result of that. However, I may not admit that. So consider this, it's uncharted territory, this, an unknown area. So I'm kind of making it up, but it's the way other claims have happened. I understand from a colleague of mine that millions have already been invested in advertising budgets to get it out there, to make this the new PPI. Have you had a COVID-19? Did you contract it at work? Well, we're going to make a claim for you, and there are some really quite serious ramifications here. So consider an employee, him, her, it's all the same. They get COVID-19, they're going to hospital, they're intubated, and they emerge a few weeks later with likely ongoing complications, breathing issues, recovery times, response to medication, a real prospect of not being able to go back to work again. Now, we've done a few extrapolations on the figures here, and a 30-year-old person on average wage who can't work again that may need rest of life care, the kind of claims, civil claims, not criminal ones we're talking about, the claims that will affect your insurance, we're looking at potentially up to £5 million in terms of a claim. Consider Germany, 1,500 people have just been diagnosed as having COVID-19 in that meat processing plant. Now let's work on the basis that, I don't know, 30% of those go into intubation, perhaps. 500 people, and maybe 20% of those will have long-term issues. 100 people at 5 million a pop? Start thinking about what that's going to do to your liability insurance, your Liability, employers' liability cover at £10 million is going to be a little bit limited by there.
Right.
So it's just something to bear in mind. This is from the Daily Mail 2 days ago. You can't read it, it's in reverse. Thousands could have permanent damage to lungs. This is the most widely circulated newspaper in the UK. Persistent physical, cognitive and psychological impairments, pulmonary fibrosis. 30% of the survivors of SARS and MERS, previous coronavirus outbreaks, suffered permanent lung disease, persistent lung damage. And now with COVID-19, in the 6-week scans, so far between 20% and 30% of patients who've been in hospital appear to show some early signs of lung scarring. Yes, it's the Daily Mail. Yes, you may knock it and say it's rubbish, you don't believe it, but there are people who read it. And the people that do will be the ones making the claims. Let's assume your fella is in that position, he's got SSP, a reduced wage, he can't pay the bills, his kids need feeding, and his mate down the pub says, have you had a call from one of those people? Have you had an accident at work? I think we've all had those. People will be more likely to make a claim. I'll do a little bit more about the process later. Next, please. Thank you. I'm afraid I'm going to do a little bit of law now, which is important to understand. You guys are board members, are directors, some will be supervisors and managers. I'm going to keep it short. This is a very shortened version of a big claims defensibility seminar that we provide to a number of our clients. Essentially, general duties of employers to employees. Note here, risk of harm. It doesn't have to have happened. It's only the risk that it can have happened. And this is a criminal offence. We're not talking civil claims for the 5 million. We're talking fine for the company, criminal records, and the associated brand damage, etc. Prosecution for risk of harm. You only have to show that you might be putting people at risk. And just to go through here, it shall be the duty of every employer. You don't have a choice. Your duty as an employer. The law says you have to ensure, so far as is reasonably practicable, I'll explain that in a minute, the health, safety and welfare of all your employees whilst they're at work. Not at home in the kitchen, but at work. So it's in the workplace, which, yes, does include home working. I appreciate on a temporary basis, home working, you don't need to worry too much about assessments. But if you decide to do it on a permanent basis, you need to start thinking about workstations, potentially providing some additional kit. Might be an additional cost, like, for example, the maglocks on the fire doors. There could be some associated costs. Now, what does that mean? Health, safety and welfare? Well, don't hurt them, don't kill them, and make sure you look after them, essentially. So far as is reasonably practicable. Now, there is a legal definition. I'm going to try and give you mine, which hopefully puts it in simple English. If you've got a workplace and it's going to cost you £1 to stop somebody getting killed, is that reasonable? Yeah, of course it is. Fantastically reasonable. If it's going to cost you 10 grand to get stop somebody getting a paper cut by putting guarding on them on a office guillotine, is that reasonable? Not really. That is the law. That is somewhere in the middle is where the law says you have to show, and you have to show that you have done everything reasonably practicable. Now, that might be training, it might be risk assessment, it might be control measures, it might be isolation, that hierarchy I mentioned earlier. Happy to explain on another occasion. But that's where you need to be, and you need to be able to show it. Next, please. I've kind of gone over this already, but I want to do it twice. You need to provide the information, tell them what it's all about, the instruction, tell them what they're doing, training and supervision, make sure they're doing it so far as is reasonably practicable to ensure health, safety and welfare of the employees. This is the audit trail. Please, please, please make sure you get everybody to understand what you have in place, and I'll kind of do a little ladder a little bit later on which goes through it in a bit more detail, but that ladder is going to be your defence, not only against the civil claim, which can potentially affect your premiums, but also against these criminal charges.
Oh, Simon, can I just cut in there? And would you recommend that that's evidenced as well? Yeah.
Absolutely. Evidence is crucial in this. Evidence, I'll pick up on it a little bit later. Evidence is crucial. If you don't have the evidence, it didn't happen. And if somebody takes a dislike to you, or these ambulance chasers, we like to call them, with the new PPI set, they will be looking for all this stuff up front. And when they look for it up front, they'll be looking to pick holes in your defence. This is about making sure you have that protection in place.
Simon, just very quickly, with regards to you providing this service to our clients already at Verlingue, has there been an occasion in the past where you've gone through a health and safety claims defensibility with our clients, and you've seen how your advice has provided benefits to one of our clients?
It happens on most occasions, actually. It can be silly things sometimes, but usually risk assessments are out of date. They're not being completed properly. Maybe somebody's got a thing they paid 10 grand for Peninsula. Some of you may know, and I'm picking them at random, but they've got a big box of paperwork on the side that's gathering dust on the side. It's just blank templates, and there's no protection in there. There's no safety for the workers in there either. So quite often we see that. Often we see that there's not adequate communication. For example, you may have a non-English speaking workforce. You may need to translate some of that stuff. You do have to make sure this is effectively communicated, and they have to tell you that they've understood it and that they will abide by it. If they're not, you are open. Equally, sometimes we find safe systems of work. Usually that kind of thing is down to the workplace. You know your systems far better than I do. But that audit trail in place, because that's what people will be checking and coming to make that it works. That is something that we do a fair bit of, looking at that audit trail. And occasional physical things. I'll pick on something I think of at random. I went to a site, a large warehouse, and in it they had a first aid box, fantastic, a first aid box on the wall, fully stocked, fully in date, and it was situated actually on the manual handling equipment highway for all the fork trucks zooming past at 10, 15 mile an hour. If you take somebody over there and you're treating them, you're more likely to get run over by a forklift truck. No, guys, move it, get it somewhere safe. Little things like that. That can all make a difference to your defensibility. That answer, Tony?
Yes, thank you. Thanks.
Good. Okay, so communication, absolutely critical here. Next one, please, Maxine. Section 3, I don't want to kill you all off with all the law, but this essentially is like Section 1, but it relates to persons other than those employed by you. So this might be visitors to the premises. It might be us if we come on your premises, if you talk to Tony or Richard Huckle. It might be if an electrical contractor comes to your premises. What's he doing on your premises? Do you monitor his own systems of safety? Is he bringing the disease into your premises? Is he bringing other risks in your premises? Fire, for example. So it's important that you look after his well-being as well. So he needs to be aware of what you're doing towards looking after his safety, and your staff need to be aware of what they must do to ensure this other fellow's safety. If he gets ill, I mean, for example, the usual one is falling through a roof or something, suffered serious damage, can't work, he will claim against you because you didn't tell him that it was a fragile roof. Equally, it's not the subject of today, but you need to make sure that your contractors are doing their bit properly to safeguard your workforce. Have they got their risk assessments, method statements in place? Are they adhering to them? How do you know what to do? And separate issue. But yeah, non-employees being affected by the work activities, and if you're in the retail sector, yes, it does include customers and clients, retail, and the retail customer coming in is often the biggest issue because he won't be aware of some of the problems you have. For example, years ago, you could walk in and watch the car MOT being done. Now you do it from behind a screen because there's risks in there for the public. Okay, that's the public. So next, please, Maxine. Section 37. A couple more on the criminal law. What this basically says, if you're a managing director, chairman, senior officer, a supervisor, a person in control of the way other people do their job. If you haven't got these things in place that I've been talking about, all the records and the audit trail, and it can be shown that you connived or consented to somebody else doing something, you don't need to worry about it. No, come to me, it's a load of old rubbish. You come over here, you'll be all right, you'll be all right. And they get sick and they can demonstrate that because it was on the office CCTV or the workplace CCTV. Then that manager or director or person in charge can be personally prosecuted. Now, you can delegate responsibility to junior members of staff, but you can't delegate accountability. So the man at the top will be accountable. And further down, they may be accountable as well. So it's very important to ensure that whatever you put in place is actually in place and they're adhering to it. Person who's prosecuted, that means personally criminally prosecuted. The fines go up to unlimited amounts. They're increasing almost exponentially since the law changed, and it can carry with it a significant custodial sentence of up to a couple of years, which means you won't be taking the kids to football at the weekend or going on holiday this year. And yes, they can do, and they will do. And there's a sting in the tail for this. I haven't got a slide for it, but it's called Section 40. You may have all heard the phrase innocent until proven guilty in criminal law. Well, there's something called reverse burden of proof, and it applies to this section of health and safety. It means you are guilty till proven innocent. So you're going down unless you can prove that you've done it all properly. How do you do that? Reasonably practicable. Can you prove that you've done everything reasonably practicable? And if you can, you should escape a prosecution. But it's a tricky one. So there will be people out there and there will be enforcement agencies out there. COVID-19 is reportable disease now, which means the HSE or the local authority get to hear about it, which means they might come sniffing around, particularly if you're on the radar because you've had something before. So guys, please just watch out for that one. Next one, please. This is not us. This is something I pinched off a website off of Google, a bit in red, to warn you. We don't do this kind of stuff. This is the no-win, no-fee website, ambulance chaser, the new PPI market, whatever. But the reason I brought this to your attention is I want you to have a look at the way it's worded. It's very, very clever. Get in touch with one of these people who probably texted you or sent you an email or whatever, or even pop up in a shopping centre. Look at what they say. It's free. It's easy to use. Local. Wow, I like that. Expert. We're trusted, and it doesn't cost you anything. We can claim for your actions at work. Focus on your recovery, your compensation. Remember, you're on SSP, and the kids are moaning they want a new PS4, and you can't afford it. Unsure? Talk to us. I don't even have to come in here. You can do it from home. Free medical appointments with private healthcare. I mean, if you're suffering with COPD and your breathing's difficult and you're not sure where you caught COVID, you might have caught it at Bournemouth yesterday. But what if the workplace hasn't got the controls in place? You think, well, there's money there. You talk to one of these people, they will start looking to see where the money is, and where the money is where the claim will go. So this is in the interest of looking after, first of all, the safety of your guys in the workplace. Get your processes and procedures in place. If they do get ill, make sure they're looked after, then try and make sure that you've done everything properly. It is a difficult one, but try and avoid these people who are chasing after it. As I say, millions have gone in advertising budgets towards putting this forward, going, you know, as we go into towards the end of the year. Okay, that's kind of the beware on that one. If we could go to the next one, please. We're pleased to hear we're approaching the end. In criminal terms, the health and safety prosecutions, that's where you can go to prison and you can get the big corporate fines. Liability is different. Liability is insurance based. Your insurers won't pay out for your criminal fines, that's against the law, but they will pay out if they have to make a damages payment for injuries sustained at work, and that can be proven. Now that means that we know how they pay out, we know why they pay out, that's what we do. We also know that if you can show you have adequate defensive procedures in place to reduce the likelihood of the claim being paid out because you have the right safety systems in place to below 50%, the chances are the no-win, no-fee ambulance chasers will forget it and go away. Yes, you can still be sued and they may still get something, but it's done on the basis of probability, not certainty, like it is the criminal. So if on the balance of probability, there he is again, it can be shown that you didn't do everything right, yeah, sure, you're going to get a civil claim against you. You run into the back of somebody, you pay for the repairs to their car, that's a civil claim. It's not the conviction you get for driving without due care and attention, but there's a lot more accidents paid out for negligence than there are for criminal charges. So this successful claims defence, because the burden of proof is higher on prosecution, if you defend yourself to a civil claim, i.e. putting the right processes in place, you're more likely to defend yourself against prosecution. If you get prosecuted, you will lose the civil claim. I do a lot of my work here helping businesses to build that defence, to give your legal representatives something to work with. And I'm going to now go into the next bit, which is perhaps the most important. If you take one thing away from this today, guys, take away this next slide. Subtle hint. Okay, now I've touched on some of these before. Lighting's just gone. Sorry. Evidence, something tangible that insurers can use. First of all, they'll be looking for your health and safety policy. And this is for your insurers to help fight your claim. This is to give them the ammunition that they need. If they can fight for you, they will fight for you, as long as it's justifiable. If somebody's hurt, nobody more than I would fight for them to get a justified claim. But if they're trying on a bit, then that's a bit of a problem, perhaps. You should have a health and safety policy regularly updated once a year. Risk assessments you know about, and it's kind of the hierarchy. The risk assessments at the top. What are the risks? The safe systems of work. How do you do stuff that controls those risks? The training records. How do you communicate that to people? How comes your maintenance records, lifting equipment, poor records, such as your maintenance records on equipment? Formal evidence of communication to that staff. Formal, please sign it off, confirming their understanding that employees will adhere to it. That is your ladder. That's what you want. At the bottom here, we have accident reports, investigations you should be doing, retraining. If the risk assessment shows it needs retraining, retrain them accordingly. Evidence of competence. What do I mean by that? Who's advising you on your health and safety? Is it somebody internally who's been trained, or is it the girl on reception who might have done first aid once? Do you need more? Office risks are lower risks than engineering risks. Medical risks are much, much higher. Have a look at your level of competence. Have they done managing safely or an EBOS certificate or some form of training? Witness statements, always important these days. Pictures, CCTV and video. You may remember I mentioned the CCTV's caught your boss doing something, telling you to do something you shouldn't do. That can be used in evidence. And you know, it's important that you do things right. So this is the backbone of your defence, these documents here. So I believe these slides will be made available afterwards, and I appreciate a lot of it is around the slides, but I wanted that in there so you can see what you need. What I mostly work with clients, which Tony touched upon earlier, I will look at these things to say, have you got this in place? How effective is it? So, okay, great. Next one, please. A bit of a recap. Up-to-date statement, organisation arrangements. Statement, we will not kill people or hurt them. Organisation, you should list who is responsible in your organisation for carrying this out. That will be the chief exec at the top usually, maybe the ops director in the middle and a lower level supervisors, but that needs to be in place so you can show who's responsible. Arrangements, what are your first aid arrangements? What do you do about fire warden training? All those kind of things. Risk assessment, up-to-date, accessible and essential defence. One of the first things a claiming solicitor will look for, we want to see copies of your risk assessments. Well, if you've got to put them up in court in front of him, you better be sure they're good and that they pass muster. Safe systems of work, following on. I've just listed out, you might have a different name from them there, method statements, standard operating procedures, SOPs, work procedures, all the same thing, the right way of doing something. Next, please. Cost, yeah, there is a cost to this potential. I've covered off some of it, but most of it's not huge. This is kind of incidental cost with COVID. Screens. If you have screens at the side of your desk, you need to increase your cleaning cost to wipe them down, sanitize them. Tapes on the floor. Please make sure they're non-slip. That's something else that's cropped up. Sanitize it if you can get it. Try and get hold of it. Other cleaning products. Get your cleaners if they're contracted to do the job properly. Internal movement easier. I covered that off earlier. Make it easier to move around the workplace if you can. One-way systems, mag locks, whatever. You may have to pay additional health and safety consultancy fees. Maybe smaller or larger, you may have in-house expertise. Additional fire warden first aid training, maybe, but if you're in a shared building, what about sharing that with somebody else who's on the premises? You've still got 50% of people working from home. One other thing that's not really part of this, IT bandwidth. We're all on Zoom calls here. We've probably got other people on Zoom calls in the building. It uses up a lot of IT. You can get drop out and sound, and I hope I'm not dropping out. You may need to talk to your IT provider about giving yourself a bit more internet stuff to be able to trade a bit more efficiently online, and of course the security goes with it. That's that one. Next, please. Fantastic. I'd like to say thank you for coming along. I hope it's been useful. I hope you've all managed to take at least one thing away from it. You can see down there me. You can see my contact details. Feel free to pop me an email. I will try and answer it if I can. If I can't answer it, I will get back to you as soon as I reasonably can. I believe there's going to be some questions and answers now. Again, I'll try and answer them on the spot if I can. If I can't, then I'll come back to you. If they're more insurance related, we've got Tony and Richard on hand who should be able to provide their level of expertise on that side of things, such as increasing levels of cover for COVID, whatever. So they can answer those ones for you. Thank you, and back to Maxine, I think. Thank you for coming along.
Thanks, Simon. That was great, really informative, and yeah, lots to digest there. So everyone on the call, please feel free to unmute and direct any questions towards Simon or Richard, Tony, that you may have.
Simon, thank you for that presentation. My name is Bill Morris, and I'm the Chief Operating Officer of an outside broadcast company in High Wycombe. Always when we undergo briefings like this and health and safety briefings, it puts the fear of God in me as a director of the company. Having said that, I stand behind our risk assessments and the hundreds of thousands of pounds worth of modifications we've done to our building over the past month. I would be interested for you to tell me, or give me an example, a percentage, if you will, if a company has got the correct measures in place, and this, you could obviously delve into your experience pre-COVID, but if a company has got all the measures in place with correct paperwork and has proved has abided by that paperwork and implemented it, given that we as a company would be guilty unless proven innocent, what's the percentage of success rate in defence usually?
Funny enough, that came up a little while ago. It's not exactly the same industry, but one of our clients who I know has everything in place. They're absolutely fantastic. I found out from them actually that 96% of all HSE prosecutions are successful, which means you don't stand a lot of hope in terms of defending against prosecutions. However, I know where the HSE has attempted to prosecute this firm on 2 separate occasions, and on both occasions they successfully defended the firm, all the directors and officers, and came away with a not guilty on everything because they had everything in place. And of course, that looked good for them. I do know that that is the case. It's difficult to get exact stuff in your industry. As an aside, I also heard that the British Film Commission has recently introduced a new set of guidelines for the broadcasting fraternity. It's not a great area of expertise of mine, but I believe it is out. British Film Commission here. I believe it is out there. Does that answer your question?
Yes, not particularly the right answer, but you have. Yes, thank you very much indeed.
Thanks, Bill. Is there anyone else that would like to unmute and direct any questions to the guys? Is there any slides that you would like us to go back to and recap, or go back over any information? Again, please feel free to unmute or post something in the chat room.
Or was I very comprehensive?
You was fine, Simon.
I mean, just regarding, we was talking about ambulance chasers and health and safety risk assessments, and that can all be done. And like Bill said, what would happen if there was a claim and how it's going to be defended. But you know, there is occasions where accidents happens, incidents happens, and they are claimable under an insurance policy, whether that's employer's liability or public liability. But the fact that, like you mentioned, in Germany, it could be many workers within an environment catch COVID-19. I mean, I'm just thinking about my clients as we're sitting here, and me as a broker. You know, what keeps up at night is that I haven't insured the client properly, or they haven't got the right amount of cover. Do you think it's worthwhile looking at employer's liability and possibly increasing that from 10 to 20, or public liability if there's a lot of possible third parties, clients coming into their premises, to increase their public liability from whatever it is at the moment to 5 or 10 million?
It's a good question, Tony. The last thing I want to hear is come across as salesy. What I can tell you is that the fairly recently there's been something called Ogden tables that have raised the amounts being paid out in respect to these claims, whereas years ago you would have got maybe paid out £200,000 for a claim or something, because of the way the interest rates have fallen and people can't get back the income on any claim settlement they would have had. The claims costs have gone up through the roof. I mentioned 5 million earlier. That particular claim that I mentioned at 5 million I was thinking of started off at 1.3 million, went up to 8 million, then under the new rules came back to about 5 million. So, yeah, I mean, if you do, I would have suggested it's probably a good idea to certainly think about extending your limits. I understand that to do an excess layer on top of what you already have is not hugely expensive.
Correct.
It looks good for the workforce, it looks good for your business, and it also shows that you've addressed the issues properly. If you only have 2 employees, it's probably less likely to be of a significant issue. But if you have a number where you are in a situation where you may likely to be defending against that claim, and perhaps, as I mentioned earlier, 96% of all prosecutions are successful. Not necessarily 96% of all civil claims, I would stress, but 96% of all prosecutions are successful. Then yeah, I would probably be thinking about popping those liability, those employers' liability and public liability limits up. I would definitely be looking at it. Yeah. Ultimately, though, if you've got the right procedures in place, again, it's about getting down below that 50% on the ambulance cases. If you can get it down, the chances of them succeeding are a lot less. They drop off. They very much drop off if it drops below a 50% chance of success. And a lot of claims we see just get forgotten about. Quite often there's suspicious ones coming in as well, and something else that's coming into it now, this is beyond the scope of this today, but something called fundamental dishonesty, Section 50, what it is, Criminal Justice Act. The claimant is putting in a fundamentally dishonest claim. The courts are taking a very dim view of that, and I believe you can get a custodial sentence. So if they're trying it on, which does happen, we know it happens, we've all heard of crash for chat. If they're trying it on, then there are procedures in place now to weed out the fundamental dishonesty. And if you get done for that, you are in a lot of bother. You probably all know that when insurance companies look at claims, they don't just say, the bloke wants 500 quid, let's give it to him. That, you may think that happens, but they have surveillance people out there, have surveillance video, they check on all the paperwork, they have people out interviewing them, they'll look at their medical records, and if somebody's trying to pull a fast one, they will actually come out and say no. And it's usually, as soon as they say that to the slightly lucky claimant, then there's, you know, it won't necessarily be successful. Example, I'm doing this on the fly. If I say that I caught COVID-19 at work because I came into the office today, glorious air conditioned comfort, and picked it up from somebody else who wasn't socially distancing, yet I was on Bournemouth Beach yesterday, and there's town CCTV showing me in a party with 6 mates spearing it up on Bournemouth Beach. That's going to be used in defence. And it stands a fair chance that they'll say, well, there's no evidence to suggest you caught COVID-19 at work. Your employer did all the right things. You probably caught it on the beach, mate. No claim.
Okay.
That hopefully also helped Paul's thing as well, because I thought about what he said about ambulance cases. I commented specifically on the prosecution. What I've just said kind of reinforces that you're more successful rebutting civil claims.
Yeah, I'm just thinking on a sort of personal view of the fact that I insure, I don't know, for instance, a large cinema, Art Deco cinema, and you know, when we finally get back to normal, and you know, and the cinema opens up again, I'm just thinking about the sums insured, because it's quite scary. You visit clients such as cinemas, and they've only got £2 million worth of cover for public liability, and immediately you know that's going to be incorrect, and you've got 200 people sitting in the cinema. But it's just, you know, it struck a chord with me that I think I need to speak with my clients, looking after them and making sure that they're aware of Ogden, and also the fact that COVID-19, there could be problems with sums insured, indemnity limits. I just think it's a good idea.
I want them not to get sick. I don't want people to get sick. It might sound strange that I'm putting forward advice and help to stop claims going up, stop premiums going up. It sounds counterproductive, but it's doing the right thing. It's making sure people are looked after. You know, I don't want somebody's dad having to not be able to go home to their kids at night. I don't want somebody's mum not being able to look after the youngster or take them out. To me, it's morally important that you try and give people the best tools to protect themselves the best they possibly can. If some of them choose to go out and throw it away, I get that, but most people actually don't want to get involved with this thing, and they know what it can do. So I'm really just here to try and help you guys, give you something that helps protect you first of all, your employees first of all, and your businesses second. But if you can do it, it's not difficult. It's a bit of a no-brainer.
Great. Thanks, Simon. Is there any more questions from anyone? So, I think you've obviously done a great job, Simon. You've covered everything really well.
Either that or I've scared them off.
They still look like they're there, even though we can't see everyone. But is there someone going to speak then? We will, as I said before, we will be sharing the slides and obviously all contact details. So, you know, if you do have any questions or you go away and think of anything and things start sort of ticking away, then please do get in touch with either myself or any of the guys, Simon, Tony or Richard, and they'll be more than happy to help.
Well, we're actually, Richard and I are actually on the BBF website, helping any of the BBF members for any questions they may have regarding insurance, COVID-19, or just general queries. So if you have a look on the internet, you mentioned about the member directory. It's a really good tool where you just type in the business you want to find, type in insurance in the COVID-19 section, and Richard and I, our details, email address and phone numbers on there, and feel free to give us a call or email us any questions, and we're here for the BBF members.
Thank you all to the people saying thank you. Appreciate it. I appreciate you've stuck with it. Again, I'm very pragmatic and simplistic. I will try and give you a simple answer if I can. I'm not interested in tying it up in red tape. So yeah, I'm here. There's no question that's silly. Fire away. There you go.
Brilliant stuff.